Markets tend to repeat what they've done in the past, and there are some key signals that continue to pop up as the markets show their hand that maybe the end of their run is near. I want to go through those particular indicators in today's video, marrying the TA together with the market sentiment. This is a huge piece of our analysis here, so thank you very much for bringing it up and enjoying the market sentiment on the channel. It's your home of macro cycle analysis. We study the past to forecast the future across crypto, Bitcoin, the stock markets, commodities, and real estate. We do a lot here. So hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, drop us your comments down below. Much appreciated. Let's dive straight in. We've got a lot to get to as we always start with the macro, but I got a little bit more on all of the altcoins today, looking at some of the signals and essentially how I'm seeing the market. At the end of the day, you're here on my channel. It's my own view. You take it, leave it, or take pieces of it and bring it into your own portfolios. Okay, so the US dollar is still on its downtrend. Yesterday had a big collapse down. I posted this over on Twitter. Links are in the video description. Go and follow my Twitter account, or X if you really want to get offended and call it what it is today. So the gap down got us down to 101.5 over the course of this second half of the real estate cycle. So I'm expecting further downside on the US dollar, and of course the news and the media headlines and all that sort of stuff to continue going on about whatever bearish narrative they have. At the last bottom here in April, they were talking about BRICS is here, the US dollar is finished, and you basically get out of the US dollar, it's all over. But essentially, this is typically what happens every single cycle. We've gone back throughout the entire history of the US dollar as my chart begins to load here, going back into the 80s as well. And we get some pretty significant cycles across the course of our 18 to 20 year cycle. Anyway, that's where we currently sit. We're expecting this to continue down over the course of the coming months and years as well. What does that mean? Well, we expect the assets to continue up. So this is the macro picture, and I'll get down into the medium-term timeframes for the altcoins in just a moment. But yeah, we're just seeing the same sort of thing happen here with the stock markets. They're continuing up. This is all good news for altcoins and for Bitcoin as well. But remember, things just don't go in a straight line. They eventually have to have a correction, and that's what I'm looking out for in today's video that I want to share with you guys as well. Nonetheless, things are still looking rosy in the macro picture. Good sign for crypto and Bitcoins. We are very, very close to a new all-time high on the S&P 500, and this is basically against what everyone has been waiting for. They're all waiting for the recession, and the market's nearly at new all-time highs. The NASDAQ hit a new all-time high price again, getting a little bit of a pullback here. Remember, we've had a pretty solid streak going from the October lows, so don't be surprised if we see some sort of pause or pullback. Now, check this out. I'm pretty sure this looks like a 50% level, dead on the 50% level. That's the projection there to give you your profit targets. And you can see that it's hit 50%, it's had a reversal, and it's just closed like dead on the 50% level. Pretty wild when you think about these rules that have been created by Gann over 100 years ago, still work very, very beautifully in the markets today. You want to learn more about that, you know where to go. Link in the top of the video description. Go to TIA Crypto and subscribe to the newsletter so you can get updates on how the markets are unfolding. Another one, the Russell 2000. Maybe you weren't listening to the headlines several months ago. Absolutely okay. I'll fill you in here in a matter of seconds. The Russell 2000, the smallest 2,000 stocks in the US, all of the media was telling us that, well, the Russell's going down and these small caps are going down and they're just not going anywhere. This thing is going to collapse, which means the rest of the market had to collapse as well. It's some nonsense that they always string together to give us some sort of narrative, absolute garbage. Anyway, the Russell 2000 is now bounced out of this triple bottom, beautiful along the bottom here, and it's almost at one of its highest prices that it's had over the last 18, 20 months, and it's getting close to that 2050 level. So it's had a pretty solid move out of that low. Now the narrative has shifted. The majors, the top 7, 10 stocks in the US aren't performing as well as the bottom 500, 2,000 stocks. And so the narrative is now, well, if those aren't performing, well, it's a bearish market. You know, no one knows how to make their mind up when it comes to news headlines, but that's the end of the day. I do give it a lot of crap, and I hope you can see that the headlines are mostly a waste of people's time. So we're seeing rises in each of the markets. S&P, NASDAQ, even the Russell 2000, even the Dow Jones has been trading at new all-time high prices. Let's get on to Bitcoin and cryptos. And this is where it starts to get interesting. Bitcoin has had some time off from the top here on the 5th of December, right on the 50% level, that level that we've been watching and waiting to see how it responds over the coming days and weeks. I've suggested, based on history, that the 50% level will get tested, and then we may find ourselves here for a week or two, maybe have a drop off and then another test later in the cycle. So probably sometime in 2024. At the moment, it's still trying to hang out here. It has had a couple of closes up here. Volume seems okay as well as we head into the weekend. So maybe Bitcoin goes on one last effort to try and take out the 48K level, which is the monthly swing top back in March of 2022. So a very significant price point up there. Even if it does that, I've talked about this many, many times, the move to the upside is rather limited now compared to where we've come from in August and September. It's been a really, really big move, but these are the sort of things that catch the masses off guard. Majority of the time, the masses aren't here during the bottoms. They start to come back as the markets heat up and the market looks more exciting. And what better way to have an exciting market than to hit fresh prices, fresh higher prices that is. And of course, if we start to break 45, the talks of 50K and potentially a new all-time high in 2023, or even saying 60 or 70K throughout 2023 is going to get the masses excited. I personally don't think these sort of moves are really worthwhile. The risk and reward are just not there. And this is looking for the medium to longer term. If you are trading short term, different kettle of fish. The short term traders want this volatility. That's absolutely fantastic for them. And you've got to understand the difference between those two. So we're just looking at the longer term stuff here. If I'm talking about a collapse, it doesn't mean tomorrow we're going to see the collapse. I saw a couple of comments on that, and it blows my mind that people still see that. But I think they just don't watch the videos. They just look at headlines and expect something today that's said is going to happen tomorrow. So anyway, we understand better that this is across a longer term time frame. So I'm still of the view nothing has really changed here that makes me think that this market is about to go and shoot up and test fresh highs. We're still in this zone here between 42, 40, and 45 at the moment, and still can attempt the 48K level. But I don't think that gives too much to the rest of the market. Now, the market sentiment. This has been the longest run up in the market sentiment. So the crypto fear and greed index, it has gone from a low here of even single digits back in June before the FTX collapse. This is the FTX collapse through this level here. So it was a higher sentiment reading when the worst news, so we were told, was coming out. And then you had the banking crisis news. That was really, really bad news around the entire globe, and the market sentiment was higher again. So barring this one move, this has been one of the longest runs in sentiment. We've just continued up, higher highs, higher lows, fake out here. We started to go higher. So the sentiment can't run up forever like this. So I suspect there's got to be some sort of time where the market pauses and potentially tests the fear in the market again. So this is one of the pieces that is leading me to still think that nothing has changed, even if we could get a move higher. Watch the sentiment reading just to see how much higher that actually goes, or if something happens like the all-time highs in 2021, look at that drop off there. So you can see that this is December, January, February. Then you had April and May. But when you look at it in terms of the price, there is January, February, March, April, May. So the price was still going up, but the sentiment was dropping off. So the excitement for higher prices was dropping off in a bigger picture. Okay, so then we have October and November, even higher prices in a much bigger picture here. So we're looking sort of 6 to 9 month window throughout, or even up to 11 months, obviously, with November back to January, so that period there. But on the fear and greed, you get a drop off in the sentiment. So I'm anticipating that something like that might happen over the coming weeks. And that's why I'm still of the view that I think we'll see some sort of peak this month, maybe in January. And then we start to see the market roll over, or at least pause throughout the lead up into the halving. Now, this is the longest run in history. You can go back to the previous cycle. We had the April, sort of March and April bottom in the sentiment. Obviously, that was the COVID crash in 2020, and that ran straight up into December and January. So not long there, really about 9 months tops, 9 or 10 months maximum, before we had a very, very significant collapse in the market sentiment coming all the way back down to refresh it, to clear out the greed in the market. One last ditched attempt. I think I'm getting my words right there. And then a collapse yet again. Whereas this time we had the low in June, and it's just basically been a nice, long, slow grind to the top with this little bit of a fake out before one last final ditch attempt. Now I'm saying one last final one here without the confirmation yet, so keep that in mind. But to me, it just seems like we've had a couple of significant moves up now in the market sentiment, and I think something has to give. And I want to get into the altcoins in just a moment. So this is June up to the top now in November, December. So a nice 18 months. This period here, as we just said, roughly 9-10 months. So we've gone up double the amount of time since the last one here. So that's about 9 or 10. And then even through the bottom of 2018 to the top of 2019. So that big move on Bitcoin right here from about 3 or 4K up to $14,000 was only roughly 6 months. So you had 6 months, you had 10 months, and now we've got 18 months in a move to the upside. So this weighs a lot in the market sentiment for me, which I think eventually needs some time to rest and come back down to scrape out the greed in the market. So in terms of time in the greed, we've been up for roughly 6 months now with the total 3, excluding Bitcoin and ETH. The market has had a low, a higher low, and then basically a nice solid move of 1, 2, 3, 4 months. Can it continue on and get one last ditched attempt to the higher prices? Sure. So that's what I'm talking about, this sort of period of December, January. So there's still good trading opportunities provided you have strict rules and you have stop losses in place to take the profits, because the market has been up for a pretty long period of time. The longest we've seen previous to that was about 4 months from December into April. And if you go back to the previous cycle, we had 6 months up. So that was that move of Bitcoin going from 4 to $14,000, basically 3,200 to 14. There's your 6 months up. And then we had a couple of months before COVID. And then we had 5 months up. So really, we're coming towards the end of any of these moves within the accumulation area of the altcoins. And we're at our 6 months right now. Could we go longer? Yes, I don't ever want to close that off. But if you got to put the probabilities on your side, which I always think we should, it is coming towards the end of that move. And these moves we know can be pretty quick and turn around quite quickly. Same sort of picture on the total cryptocurrency market cap, had 5 months being our biggest move, and so far 3 months right now. And in the previous cycle, you had the low of December up to the top there in June. So 6 months, 2 months, and then another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 months as well. So basically the same sort of thing there. So that's why I'm talking about this could have one more attempt here, but would potentially be led by Bitcoin and potentially some ETH as well, because this is the total market cap. And then that could lead us into the pullback going into the halving. So all of that hype up news of the ETF and the halving could eventually wear off, and then we got to circulate for a new narrative leading into the second half of 2024. So this is the market sentiment reading. It can trigger some because maybe they like their coins or they're married to them, and I'm wrong, you're right, whatever. I don't really care about that. What I want to share with you is the market sentiment reading of when influencers return to the market to post on YouTube or Twitter or just get a little bit more louder in the market. And we looked at this back in November. So basically a month and a week ago to the day, we saw influencers come back. It was around 10th or 11th of the month. Okay, so I'm picking out one here. You guys know I talk a lot on Twitter with Becca and these recession calls and how it's all been off. But anyway, all that aside, probably a great guy, all right? In terms of picking the market sentiment, fantastic. Great leader in picking the sentiment. Comes back when the market is at its most extreme. And that was the point there, influencers return. Now, this was the thing I saw this morning, which got me thinking, feels like another one of those weekends where our gaming bags do another casual 50%. I mean, cryptos can go up, but unless you take profits, then it's all just garbage at the end of the day. So feelings of their jellies or feelings in their jellies right up here, right at the top. Now, this looks like a crazy big move, and you'd say, well, he was right. He came back here and the market just skyrocketed. And I'm just using Injective here because it's been one of the absolute strongest altcoins in the game. But look at the percentages. The percentages is what the game is about. Now let's put it on log. And you can see it's an absolute shithouse move for the risk that you take in these altcoins, because at the top, they go quite crazy. They can be very, very volatile quickly, and they can come back quickly. This has been a move up of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 into our 11th day now. So we had no lower lows in the daily bars here. There are red bars, but we're looking for a lower price in this section, and there were no lower prices. We're up for about 10, 11 into our 11th day now. Eventually, these things do come racing back down. So the point I'm making here is that things can go up further even when we're at that top stage. And I want to show you another example on Solana as well to look out for this, so that you can hopefully take some of those profits home and not get swept up into the hype of all of the feel goodness that we see across on Twitter when these things start to run. And they know how to get in at those peaks. So this is just my market sentiment read on what's happening. Influencers returned right at the peak. Then the market went sideways here. We had one last ditch attempt. And I'm just saying it's potentially a one last attempt up here. It's been up for 800% for months when they return. And then all of a sudden, it's like hero central for this last little period here. There's nothing wrong with making gains, and plenty of our traders do make gains using specific rules, and at least they've created their own trading plans to remain safe in the market and take those profits. So good on you guys here posting your results in the trading results panel here, 140%. Just try not to get too degenerate like Ricardo. I'm sure you won't mind me saying that there, getting with these ridiculous gains to the upside. So keep it safe out there in the markets. All right, so Injective, this is the signals that I'm looking out for here when it comes to the market sentiment. I just sort of read all this stuff and then put it into play and have a look at it where it lands on the chart. Big moves already to the upside. We've got these massive moves happening very, very quickly. And it's not just on Injective either. We can see it on Bonk, which of course is Solana's meme coin here, up 15,000%. Now, if we look back to the times in the market when the influencers returned, here it is right about there. So right just above the 50% of this entire move, and now they're talking about it again right at the peak. So how does that look? That bar looks absolutely bonkers to the upside when this is the entire price range of the entire history of the chart happening in one day. You've got to start to ask yourself, is this sustainable? So don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say that there are no opportunities out there. Clearly, there are plenty of opportunities. The main thing that we all want to do is make profits from the market and not get screwed getting in too late into the market either. So you can still get in as the market breaks out, but make sure you have some stops underneath key levels. The thing I love to use is the TI Gann swing indicator. If the market breaks down from these key swing bottoms, it's typically a signal that the trend is coming to an end, if in fact it hasn't already ended by that point. So that was Bonk on Solana. Let's have a look at Solana itself. In terms of timeframes, we've been up for 13 weeks now from this low in September. That was a very strong low. It was when the bears got really loud, expecting huge collapses. It just didn't happen. 13 weeks to the upside, and Solana looks like it wants to attempt another break out to the upside. So as I've said many times, I think that we are in the midst of some sort of top forming here, at least for the medium term before we get that pullback. And then I think that's a good time to enter because we have the confirmation that the market is able to break out of key resistance levels, and then we get that entry point. And I think there's still a fair bit of time, as I've looked at before with these markets. Solana did 13 weeks up exactly last time, came back down for a considerable amount of time. Bitcoin got into a new all-time high, and then Solana started to do its thing, had a 17-week move, and then a few month pause here, and then finally into that last ditch attempt to the top was another 6 weeks into that peak. Took some time. There's several months there where it was just rolling around before it started to collapse. So this is the idea that I'm sharing with you. We're looking at the market sentiment towards the end of moves. Doesn't mean that the top is exactly in, but at the end of the day, I think our job is to take a chunk of profits from the middle as best as we can and just leave the bottom picking and the top picking for the others. Because as legendary hedge fund manager Peter Lynch has said, far more money has been lost by investors preparing for corrections or trying to anticipate corrections than has been lost in corrections themselves. So essentially, the way I read it is those trying to pick bottoms and pick exact tops lose the most money. We have the weekly close coming up, so let's see how Bitcoin closes come Monday morning or Sunday night. Is it going to be below 42K or above 42K? Let me know in the pinned comment down below what you think is going to happen to Bitcoin at the end of this week. And I'll see you guys at the next one. Remember the links in the video description for TIA Premium. Subscribe to that. Free newsletter is coming out next week as well. Well, until the next one, I'll see you then. Take care and peace out.